Hello, hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to day 20 of our self-love challenge. And today, what I really want to talk about is emotions. But really like bringing it back to understanding them. What are emotions? All right. A few years ago, whenever I started this, I didn't understand emotions, and they happen to us pretty much all day, every day. And so I believe that when we don't understand something, we tend to resist it or make it bad. We're scared of it. So really gaining an understanding of what is going on whenever we're having emotions, what they are, what their purpose is, has really been helpful for me in navigating my own emotions. So I've heard this, and it makes a lot of sense to me, that emotions are energy and motion. Emotion. Energy and motion. Okay? And so it's like whenever you really take a look at it and realize, because honestly, whenever we're in our emotion, if we're feeling rage or anger or grief or sadness or immense joy, it's so visceral. You feel it. It feels very real, and sometimes it's uncomfortable, even if it's a good emotion, and then sometimes it's pleasant. So sometimes we like the anger. Sometimes we get addicted to that, so good and bad are kind of not really the best identifying words here, but understanding what they are and how they occur can really help separate and make it's kind of like with the thoughts, whenever you're believing that you are the thought, it controls you. Whereas if you know that you are having a thought, you can control it. You can choose to not believe it, right? The same with emotions. Whenever you are so in it and not separating yourself from it, you are not your anger, you are not your joy, you are the vessel that's experiencing it. So when you separate that, it helps it to not be your identity, and you can actually then control it rather than it running you. And I was thinking earlier today, it would be cool if we could hook up some sort of machine to people, and anytime they commit a crime or do something like yelling or hitting or something that's wrong, it would be interesting to see the emotions that are going on. I would bet that a very high percentage of crimes happen when somebody is identifying with their anger, and projecting it out instead of, because that's what emotions are here to do, is to give us a message on how we need to act, right? So anger might be a messenger saying, hey, you're abandoning yourself right now. You need to speak up for yourself, advocate for yourself, make a choice to put yourself in a different situation or something like that. Instead of that person is doing this since I'm angry and I'm gonna whatever to them. It's what can I do with this emotion instead of putting it onto somebody else, you know? I hope that makes sense. Another thing that really helped me was learning more about the brain. And so the brain is like so incredible, right? We are like, our brains are just so cool. However, they're very smart, and they're also kind of not smart as well. But if we know how they're not smart and we can work with that, it's very powerful. So, like, think about when you're watching a movie or a show you really like, right? And you get attached to a character in there, and then they kill that character off, or they end the show. And a lot of times for me, when a movie ends, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want this to end, you know? But our brains, cannot tell the difference between reality and like what we're consuming. So that's why we get so emotionally attached to shows and movies and the news, which the news is real, but you know, like my example would be like Grey's Anatomy. Like, it put me on a whole emotional roller coaster. And whenever I first started doing this work, I couldn't watch Grey's Anatomy because I was too I couldn't handle it. So that's the thing, like, whenever you're feeling the emotion, and I've been testing this out too, like whenever I'm watching a show and I get emotional with it, I'm like, it's not real. You know, and making sure that we're telling ourselves that whenever things aren't real, whenever it's not really in our reality. A thought can trigger an emotion. So if you're thinking thoughts that are like really negative and bad towards yourself, like, oh, I'm an idiot, and your belief is that you're not worthy, and it keeps driving this, the emotions inside of you are going to react like that. Even though it's not really true, it is what you're consuming. So this is why it's so important to address the thoughts and address the beliefs, because they do drive a lot of these emotions. In addition to our actual past experiences, our environment and what's going on, what we consume, you know. So, there's that. I want to bring up too that hormones are tied to our emotions. So, as a woman who, you know, menstruated for a while, you know, but the time before that happens, it's like you don't even recognize yourself, right? So that's an example of hormones and your emotions. Same with boys and testosterone, you know. And then you have your cortisol, which is your stress hormone. So if you're constantly putting yourself in stressful situations or watching things that are like scary and stressful, that is releasing cortisol in your body, which is the stress hormone, and it has all kinds of physiological effects. It's my belief that many diseases come from elevated cortisol. Maybe one day I'll be able to prove that. And then you have your like happy hormones too, your dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and I think I'm forgetting one, but that's okay. So there are things you can do to like help those ones, you know, move around your body. Like oxytocin is the love hormone, so like hugging is a good way to get that one. Standing out in nature, Your dopamine is like after you complete a task, it gives you that hit of dopamine, so you can find ways to release that. So if you find that you're in a state of like unwanted emotions, not preferred emotions, you can do things to try and release the happy hormones, you know? You can get a hug, you can call a friend, you can go outside in nature. Exercise are all things that release these happy hormones. So, there's that, the chemical aspect. And then I started looking into like, because whenever I was coming up, we used to have the thing on the wall that like had all the faces, you know, and they were happy and sad and anxious and whatever. But really that's all that got talked about for emotions. So I looked up like how long have we known about emotions? Like when did the research start or whatever? And it actually started in the late 1800s. So it's only a little over 100 years old that we've been looking into this. And really in the 1900s, early to the 60s, it started, you know, gaining some whatever. And like it wasn't until 1995, in the 60s, emotional intelligence, the word came about. And it got popular in 1995. And so the research on this is still like in its infant stage. So it makes total sense why it's like not understood. It's not like common knowledge yet. But it's so important because when we're identifying with our thoughts, our beliefs, and our emotions, when we allow them to have control of us, instead of us looking at it and saying, hey, this is happening, like we're observing it happening to us, and then that way we can respond to it instead of react. That's the key. Like we're still going to have the emotions, we're still going to have the thoughts, the beliefs are still kind of in there, you know, but we get to choose and say, hey, is this true? Like, and with emotions it's a little different because once it's there, like it's true, and telling yourself it's not is just resisting it. So once the emotion is there, I think it's probably best to sit in it and figure out what it's trying to tell you. But you still know that you are not that emotion, that they come and go. It's energy and motion. So nothing just stays, you know, unless you identify with it and want to keep it there. So that's really the importance here. That's the importance of all of this, is that we are not our thoughts, we are not our beliefs, we are not our emotions. However, if we let them go unchecked, then they do control our lives. They control our behaviors. We make different choices than we would have made had we sat and observed it and figured out, hey, is it even true? Is this what I want to think? Is this what I want to believe? Is this how I want to feel? And there are little things that we can do, you know, to switch the way that we're going here. So, yeah, I feel like having an understanding of what they are, instead of they're just this mysterious thing that takes over us from time to time and we don't know what to do with it. Knowing that it's just energy in our bodies moving, and it wants to get out, you know? The anger wants to be released. Now, whether you release it by bashing in your car or somebody's face, or you could like scream into a pillow or yell while you're alone in your car, or you could stomp on the ground, you know, and release it safely. And that's where the response varies from the reactivity. And the reactivity comes from identifying with the emotion, and it like just, it like runs you instead of you being in control. Even though you may be feeling anger, you know, you can still feel the anger and be in control without bottling it. It's finding a way to express it that's healthy and productive. Maybe it's painting a painting, you know? Maybe it's making a song. Maybe it's in dance. So it's very important, and it's life-changing whenever it, like, you get your power back. You know, instead of feeling powerless and helpless, you get to decide. And it's just so beautiful. And it makes total sense that we're here now just learning about this, because, I mean, really, the research on this that connects like the neuro to the body, it all just came out like 30 years ago. So it makes sense that we didn't know, and that we're just learning. We're like babies. We're emotional intelligence babies. You know, pioneering. So, I can't believe we're already on day 20. Oh my goodness. Tomorrow, I'm going to be tying all of this up. This has been a wonderful experience, and I'm excited to continue to work through this, work on this, and keep you guys updated as to what's going on in my head and body. So today's challenge is to look in the mirror. You can do this while you're brushing your teeth with your other hand. And what I want you to do is notice how you're talking to yourself when you look in the mirror. Are you noticing all of your flaws? And I want you to stay looking in the mirror until that stops. And you can look into your eyes, and I want you to see yourself. You know? See yourself. Without the judgment, without the criticism, without trying to fix anything. There's nothing wrong with you. Look in the mirror, look in your eyes. Who is that person? What have they been through? What are you proud of? You know? And this is something that for me, whenever I first started doing it, it's like, it's automatic to start like, oh my God, you know? It gets easier, even though there's still those those times. So look in the mirror. What do you see? Can you look at that person with love and reverence for getting you here, getting you through all the things, for feeling all the things, for thinking all the things, believing all the things? Let me know how that goes, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.